Despite claiming great knowledge of the outside world, the insular country of North Korea knows very little about even its own neighbor, South Korea. Higher-ups in the North Korean government go to great lengths to keep aspects of life in South Korea hidden from its citizens. We'll reveal some of the things that most people in North Korea have no idea about. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed to The Hub and join our notification squad to get the latest awesome videos. Mass graves. Let's start this video out with something as cheerful as possible: mass graves. For an extremely long time, North Korea denied the existence of mass graves on its land and basically accused people of trying to tarnish the glowing reputation of North Korea. However, having access to what is now basic satellite imaging technology means that South Korea isn't quite so easily fooled. A human rights group called the Transitional Justice Working Group interviewed almost 300 North Korean defectors and used their testimony to give them an idea of where to look with their satellites. They were able to spot 12 mass graves, located primarily on the outskirts of town or near prison camps. While it's hard to say how many people lose their lives each year at the hand of the North Korean government, it's estimated that 120,000 people are currently being detained for crimes against the state. The next step for South Korea is making North Korea aware that they know about these graves. They want North Korea to be aware that they know about the abuse of its citizens, and they even hope that their evidence may be used in legal actions against North Korean officials in the future. Relations with the US. North Korea does not like the United States. We know, it's really shocking. Not only do they accuse us of persecuting their country for no reason, they believe that we are committing evil atrocities in South Korea as well. It's true that there are US military forces stationed in South Korea, but that's because of the threat of North Korea. If anything, North Korea has brought the US and South Korea closer together. Common and popular propaganda in North Korea claims that the United States has occupied South Korea and regularly commits atrocities against its citizens, particularly children. Americans are depicted as an inherently evil race that cannot be reasoned with in any way. We aren't saying our country is perfect, but inherently evil is a bit much. They claim that the Korean War started when America's occupying North Korea decided to try to conquer North Korea just because. Other than worrying about ending up in a prison camp or a mass grave, the North Korean government wanted citizens to believe that if they try to defect, they will have nowhere better to go. South Korea may be close by, but it's infested with Americans, so definitely don't go there. Have you ever wished you could see the most amazing video content all in one place? Look no further than ThePremium. You'll gain access to thousands of ad-free videos from The Richest, Screen Rant, The Taco, The Sportster, The Things, and more. It's free to sign up, so log on today. Best of all, you'll get the first peek at the newest content available before anyone else does. What are you waiting for? Check out ThePremium and start binge watching now. One people. North Korea spreads the idea that it's racially superior to the people in South Korea. In the early 1900s, Japan had this radical idea that both North and South Korea were genetically the same, and they tried to share this news with North Korea. This went over like a lead balloon, and further fueled their insular tendencies. South Korea is depicted as a country that has been tainted because of its interaction with different countries, while North Korea remains pure. They believe that they are not only from different genetic stock than the people in South Korea, but that their stock is superior. As we discussed in our last video, people in North Korea actually have shorter lifespans and are just plain shorter than people in the South. We know that this is because of their lack of healthy foods, but it does make you wonder how North Korea would explain these differences if those facts were ever made public. Even in their films and stories, all North Koreans are depicted as being incredibly virtuous and having only the slightest and most easily overcome of flaws. How do they overcome their flaws? Why, by loving North Korea more, of course. Food shortages. As we mentioned, the famine in North Korea is so extreme that it's affecting the longevity of its citizens. However, North Korea is typically loath to admit that their country might not be perfect, and they refer to this as a food shortage. To combat this, they tried advocating eating non-food items, such as yummy yummy sawdust to stave off hunger. The government even instituted a 2 meals a day initiative, where they chastised their citizens for wanting to eat more than twice a day. Needless to say, these did not go over well. When the food shortages got even more out of control, officials were forced to address the problem and proceeded to blame it on the weather and a failure to properly adhere to the teachings of their supreme leaders. They also explained in a newspaper article that the road to revolution is long and arduous, and that things are much worse in South Korea and other countries. While there are, of course, hungry people in South Korea as well, The country is overall very prosperous and is nowhere near the dire straits that North Korea is in. Freedom of speech. To us inherently evil Americans, and for many other people, freedom of speech is kind of a huge deal. In North Korea, freedom of speech is non-existent. Even private conversations aren't really private, as Kim Jong-un has spent millions of dollars on equipment to monitor his citizens and make sure they aren't saying anything negative about him or North Korea in general. If someone is caught, they can be publicly executed or sent to prison camps, which obviously reduces the urge to gossip quite a bit. Because this is the life that North Korean citizens live, they are completely unaware that outside of North Korea, people are free to dissent. People in South Korea have even been known to take to the streets to protest their government, something that is completely unthinkable for the people in North Korea, who could be executed just for reading a newspaper they got from South Korea. For people in South Korea, freedom of speech is guaranteed in their constitution, and the only limit they have, humorously enough, is not promoting the North Korean regime. Under the national security law, that could result in punishment, although prosecutions are very rare. The government also tries to stop people from sending messages to North Korea for fear of retaliation. However, some South Koreans believe this infringes on their rights to freedom of speech, so there is actually some ongoing controversy regarding that. Weaknesses. It's no secret that North Korea loves showing off and bragging about how they're the best. But while they may enjoy picturing the people in South Korea trembling with fear while watching displays of North Korean military prowess, the truth is that South Korea is well aware of their weaknesses. They also know that this is mostly posturing meant to show that North Korea is a legitimate threat capable of escalating things in an aggressive manner. Things like testing ballistic missiles tends to put people on edge, and this includes its own citizens. It helps North Koreans believe that they are under constant threat of invasion and causes them to live in fear believing their government is telling the truth about threats from other countries. But the real truth is that while North Korea has an extremely large army of about 1.2 million soldiers, their weapons are absurdly out of date, while South Korea has access to state-of-the-art weaponry. Now, don't get us wrong. Any war with North Korea would be expensive for everyone involved and would result in the loss of many lives. But we also know that North Korea is in no position to back up their threats. A war with North Korea would ultimately be most devastating for North Korea itself. Movie magic. We mentioned previously that Kim Jong-il ordered the kidnapping of South Korean director Shin Sang-uk and his actress wife Cho Yoon-hee. Well, today, we're going to talk about one of the most infamous films they created during their time in North Korea. It's called Puljasari, and it's essentially a North Korean knockoff of Godzilla. During a screening in New York City, people walked away from the film calling it bizarre, yet fascinating. It tells the story of an impoverished farmer who works with a giant monster in order to fight an evil emperor. Now, if you combine the fact that media from other countries is forbidden in North Korea, and that they believe everything their country does is the absolute best, this means that they have no idea there is a real Godzilla movie that this one is based off of. By creating Puljasari and other films, Kim Jong-il wanted to show the world that his country could make great films too. Obviously, the flaw in his plan, besides having to kidnap people from South Korea who actually made the films, is that people in South Korea have seen the real Godzilla. Not to mention that many other films that people in North Korea have no idea about. Fun. Now, everything in North Korea isn't completely sour and dour all the time. They definitely know how to cut loose and have some fun. After all, they have a whopping 3 amusement parks. One of them is known as the Day Fair, which has been dubbed the world's most depressing theme park, for reasons we just can't imagine. Prior to 2012, the park was in even greater state of disrepair, if you can imagine that. Kim Jong-un visited the park that year and criticized caretakers for the park's dilapidated appearance and accused them of having a below-zero spirit on serving the people. Of course, even if this place didn't look like you could get tetanus just walking through it, few people in North Korea could afford to actually go there. People in North Korea claim to outsiders that the park is frequently crowded, but people who've actually visited tell a different story. When a group of tourists arrives, they will actually bus in groups of Korean citizens to make it seem slightly less deserted and dismal. They're definitely not fooling South Korea, a country with many exciting theme parks, including a massive Lodi World, which features both indoor and outdoor parks, a museum, and an ice skating rink. Television. If you'd rather stay at home than make the trek to the Mangyeongdae Fun Fair, you can tune into one of 5 North Korean television channels. Of course, they only air content after 5 p.m. on weekdays, and on weekends unless there's a special occasion. Doesn't that sound fun? There is an educational channel that is only available in their capital city, another education channel that also features culture, a sports channel, and a channel that exists to make fun of South Korea. Most people in North Korea have no idea how much media is out there in other countries, since possessing any is actually illegal. However, they definitely have at least some idea that there is more out there, as many people in North Korea risk grave repercussions by smuggling tapes of South Korean soap operas over the border. One former North Korean math professor, Jang Si-yul, was caught with several South Korean soap opera DVDs and was sentenced to manual labor. In addition, he faced serious social stigma because it was known that he had been exposed to insidious South Korean influences. Women's rights. Surprisingly, women's rights in both South Korea and North Korea have improved in recent years. Although in typical North Korean fashion, even the good done for women is for horrible reasons. Yes, women are now allowed to work outside of the home, but only because their country is desperate for laborers. Women are expected to work 8-hour days, but the good news is if you have 3 or more children, you only need to work 6. So you have some free time to take care of all the housework and childcare. Now, don't get us wrong. South Korea has a long way to go in terms of women's rights. Until 2015, adultery was actually illegal, and just over 100 years ago, women weren't allowed to divorce their husbands. People in North Korea aren't aware that in South Korea, women are pretty much equal to men in terms of legal rights, education, and health. They still have a long way to go in terms of equality in the workforce and in political participation, but hopefully they'll get there soon. The more we learn about North Korea, the more morbidly fascinated we become. And since they are so notoriously opaque about their country, it just makes us wonder what else is going on there that we have no clue about. We have only just begun to scratch the surface. So be sure you're subscribed to The Hub for more informative videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.